this is John Kvale, and this is our fall 2025 newsletter. It's finally on the presses. This is Sunday, what is today? Sunday, December 7th, a little bit late, later than we'd intended, but boy, do we have what I think is a really good newsletter, and I'm going to lead by saying that it's fairly complicated, and as such, it's probably going to give those of you that listen to this audio a great advantage. I may put something to the effect in the post, but for those of you, and I'm going to do it a little bit slower, so it's going to likely be longer format, but there's a lot to hit in here. And it's a little bit, like I said, it's a little bit more complicated. So those of you that are driving down the road, we do this in a video audio podcast like format. So I will verbally tell everything, and those of you that are able to watch this, I will push it through the actual video, which will then come out on the blog post. So let's first start with a great honor. We did once again, as a firm, receive the Best D Magazine Award. That was an announcement that we made a few weeks ago, and it is going in the newsletter. And it's Best Wealth Manager. And then I was honored and flattered to again win as Best Financial Planner. One thing that we kind of went over quickly last year, and that is that I was super honored to win one of only about 89 Financial Planner Awards from Money Magazine that was done last year in the United States. I want to say 89 or maybe right at 90. I've got all of the sources here, and I have to say this from a compliance standpoint, so we didn't pay or are not compensated for these awards. So moving on, for those of you that are in listen-only mode, we are going to the newsletter, and this is what it looks like in the post, and you can actually download the newsletter from here, and you can print it. I refer back to this, but it looks different. I refer back to this frequently. This is a great source of where it is. This actually goes on our blog site, and it'll also go on our website as well. So here's the newsletter, but let's dig in a little bit deeper. So those of you that are in listen-only mode, I am going to the first of the two lead articles, and that's 401k follow-up. So the two most important, or the two lead articles, I'm not going to say most important because they're all important, are planning-related articles. And so I ran into another study in 2019, Cerulli, I think that's the way you pronounce it, did a study and basically said that 401k plans don't want your old 401k. They want you to get rid of them. They don't like dealing with them, and they basically are pests once you're gone. And then I just ran into another study by Capital Research, and it kind of parlays. This just occurred in the last month or two, and it was talking about how many forgotten, lost 401k accounts are out there. Well, it makes sense if you've got former employers that don't want the 401k, that they get lost in the shuffle. You move, you forget. How could you do this? Well, a lot of these accounts, given there's a tremendous amount of accounts, and a lot of them are small, so that's where a lot of them are. But it gives you the spirit of what's going on. So that's the number one article, and I really enjoy it when I have two different sources that make the same point. Okay, this is the time of the year, and as I mentioned, this newsletter did, for a variety of reasons, did end up being a little bit later than I had intended. This is the time of the year where we fall on our swords on a 529. The main thing that I want everyone to remember is the 529 use of the funds needs to match up with the same fiscal year. Frequently, I have a lot of these where you must pay for the tuition this year for the winter of next year. You can't draw your 529 fund and use those to do that. They must match in the same use. So you've got to bridge yourself on that. And I personally haven't had anyone, but I do have friends in the industry that have had people audited over this. Go figure. Okay, let's talk about this. Probabilities and economic events. In the actual newsletter article I talk about, we used to do pseudo predictions, and it's a losing proposition, but reframe this to probabilities. And here's the probability of economic events. This comes from Hedgeye, which is one of our go-to North Star sources. And here's the interesting part about this. The economic events that they think are highly likely to happen early on through, let's call it the middle of next year. Interest rates go down predominantly through inflation going down. I popped up I sourced this and popped up a picture of their CPI forecast. It's a little bit dated because I want to give them you have to pay a lot for this research, and I don't want to put it out in a public venue, so I want to give them credit for that. Needless to say, their expectations are for a lower CPI moving forward, Consumer Price Index. That leads to lower interest rates. We're clearly in the middle of having an FOMC new chair, and the chair replacement for Jerome Powell is most likely to be very dovish. That means lower short-term interest rates. I put in the article that may very likely, could possibly, not always, but could tug down on longer interest rates. It could have another effect as well if we heat up the economy, which is a bullet point of what they're saying, that the longer term interest rates go up. But work with me here a little bit. And also another thing that they believe, their Washington correspondents believe that it is possible, but the tariffs are found illegal. I am seeing a little bit in the main news sources that thought now. They are thinking of a high probability of it. So you parlay all of that together and you've got an interesting backdrop, and ultimately what it is an economic acceleration. Okay, so what does that mean and what could lower interest rates? What could affordability? I take the dive into housing, which we don't usually do because it is and can be a loser's game as well. There's no doubt that the prices of homes have gone up dramatically, and I found and am now a recipient of the research from Ed Pintos. It's AEI is who this is, and this is a quote, and he just basically talks about how much more expensive homes have gone from 2019 to 2024. Parlay that with lower existing home inventories, and that's why housing prices have stayed high. Now we do have some softening, and it is the lead in the lead graph in this article talks about some of in the South we're seeing here in Texas, Florida, in certain areas of Texas, predominantly the Silicon Valley, Austin area, we've seen dramatic lower prices in the homes. So they are softening a little bit. Why am I talking about this housing now? Because what happens if interest rates and mortgage rates come down? Nobody's really sure, but I dig deep in multiple. I just pulled a couple of graphs out of it. There's a tremendous amount of home equity that is this is again from Hedgeye. There's a tremendous amount of home equity that is built up in home prices that have not been touched, flipped. There's a lot of people that have reasons to move to another part of the country, and they're locked because of their lower mortgage. What's going to be interesting, and we'll follow on this here in this venue, not so much in the next newsletter. We're going to talk about taxes in the next newsletter. And by the way, that's probably going to come in about February. But really, if these those of you that are in listen-only mode, if these economic events occur, Consumer Price Index lowers, replacement of a FOMC chair, and they lower rates, we could end up having lower mortgage rates. Again, I said we couldn't. And the effects of how that ripples through housing, affordability, inventories, mortgage rates, and home equity, this all pieces together. This newsletter is really neat, and I'm excited. I'm running longer, as I mentioned. This is almost 10 minutes, but we had multiple things that all kind of pointed together and had different effects. So, okay, I'm going to get this out. Today is Sunday. This will go out tomorrow. The newsletter has been rushed from our New York printer and will actually also go out via mail tomorrow to everybody. We thank you for your time. I thank you for your patience in being a little bit delayed getting this. So it wasn't that delayed, but it was a little bit later than I had intended. We'll talk to you again right around the February-March timeframe, right in the throes of tax season, to remind everybody. So thank you so much. And those of you that are in listen-only mode, we appreciate it. Have a great day. Have a good holiday season, and we will talk soon.